hope you're doing well. This video is a long time coming, but I'm finally here to talk about the different types of editing. Sometimes I'll talk to people in need of editing who seem surprised when I ask them what type of editing they need. Their eyes kind of glaze over, there's a little bit of awkward silence sometimes, and every now and then I'll get the "I just want it to be better" kind of response. But honestly, I get it. The editorial process is kind of a mystery to most people. If you're a reader or a writer, you may not know how many passes a manuscript goes through before it's published. There are so many hands that touch a manuscript, whether it's the literary agent sometimes, or the production editor, the developmental editor, the copy editor, the proofreader. Sometimes editors wear a lot of different hats when they're editing, and sometimes editors just specialize in one area, whether it's copy editing or substantive editing or proofreading. Before we start, I do want to mention that these definitions vary from publisher to publisher or client to client. These are the descriptions of the type of editing I either do day by day or the type of editing that I've learned about through editing courses. So without further ado, let's talk about the different types of editing that exist, particularly in the bookish world. First, we're going to talk about developmental or substantive editing. This type of editing focuses primarily on helping an author develop an idea. So developmental editors either help a book idea come into fruition or they work on larger scale issues in an existing manuscript. So a developmental editor might work on plot holes or moving around a chapter or, at the basic level, making sure the content is readable and coherent. Developmental editors are often researchers or fact checkers. Sometimes they work on keeping track of the timeline to make sure that the plot makes sense and make sure that everything is logical. Sometimes they work on organizing all of the necessities so that there aren't any glaring issues to the reader. Developmental editing is all about finding the right tone and style and format for the intended audience. So often when you're a developmental editor, you'll be asking questions like, does this make sense? Is this clear? Is it compelling? Developmental editing often includes some rewriting, revising, line editing, that kind of thing. So you do have to have a basic understanding of grammar and English usage and spelling and that kind of thing. But developmental editors are not the grammar police. They need to be able to look at the big picture critically. They need to have patience for the long haul. Sometimes developmental editors are working on really rough manuscripts or incomplete manuscripts. Next, we have content editing or line editing. Now, this type of editing really has to do more with stylistic editing or stylistic changes that you're making. So this could be anything from recasting a sentence or a paragraph to make sure that you're avoiding ambiguity and that you're just kind of looking out for the overall flow and pacing. Content editors have to have a firm grasp on the English language, but they're also doing so much more than your basic copy editor. Content editors have to have a firm grasp on grammar and the English language, but unlike copy editors, they have to do a lot more than just changing, word usage or a typo here and there. Content editors have to walk that fine line between preserving the author's voice and intended meaning, and fixing sentences or phrases that sound awkward or clunky. Honestly, I tend to think content editors are like copy editors with magical powers. They tend to make dialogue believable and they improve pacing and step-by-step action and just those little tiny storytelling techniques that really make a manuscript shine. Content editing includes making passive writing active and making sure authors are showing and not telling what's going on with the character's thoughts or feelings. Content editors have to be storytelling technique ninjas. They have to know everything from theme and plot and character development to point of view issues, readability, tension, and overall descriptions. Next, we have copy editing. Now, copy editing can be a very broad category. I like to offer light, medium, or heavy copy editing services personally. The sun just went behind a cloud. But overall, copy editors are responsible for a lot. Copy editing includes making sure that quotations are cited properly, checking for inaccuracies and the correct style for in-text citations, bibliographies, reference lists, endnotes, footnotes. Copy editing includes checking cross-references and making sure everything's consistent. It means you know, checking for correct spelling and capitalization and punctuation and numerals and abbreviations, checking for formats of lists and hyphenations, and honestly, so much more. Copy editing is usually the stage after content or line editing, but things do slip through the cracks. So copy editors do have to flag awkward writing and things like that. They also sometimes have to find the copyright holder's permission or check figures and illustrations. As a copy editor, you are married to your dictionary. You have to check you know, non-conventional spellings of words. You have to look out for formatting errors and word usage and tone and style. Copy editors edit for correctness and consistency, including grammar and syntax and style. Treatment of numbers, stray formatting, making sure the chapters in the books all align correctly to the table of contents. Honestly, there's so much more. There's so much more. Next, we have proofreading, which is the last stage of the editorial process, and it's the polishing of the manuscript, basically. Proofreaders help authors fine-tune their manuscripts for consistency during the final stages. So they check for typographical errors or mechanical errors, word usage, grammar, awkward writing or missing text, consistency with format and punctuation, misspellings or other discrepancies, overall appearance, typeface, fonts. Proofreading deals with correcting obvious errors and sticking to a style sheet to make sure you're as consistent as possible. As a proofreader, you have to scrutinize every component of the text. You have to keep an eye out for illogical or repeated text. You have to look out for orphans and widows and stacks. You have to look out for bad breaks. There's a lot, a lot of little minor things. As a proofreader, you have to wear this special lens. You have to be so meticulous. You have to really look through the manuscript with a fine-tooth comb because you're at the final stage. So you really have to catch everything that slips through that you can. There's a lot of pressure on proofreaders. I think people tend to think that proofreading is easier because the manuscript is more polished. But really, proofreaders have a lot on their shoulders. They have to make sure that the layout and the format and the text is pretty much perfect. So that was a lot, I'm sure, but that was basically the main categories of editing within the publishing world. Each of those categories could probably be split to include subcategories, but I think that's overall what most people need to know or most authors want to know. And again, publishers and clients tend to have different definitions of what those levels of editing entail. So if you're an editor, a new editor, or an aspiring editor, just make sure you know what's expected of you before you go into a project. It's okay to ask for those requirements. And one thing that I did that I found was helpful was going through and looking at different job postings for publishing houses or businesses or editorial agencies, whatever, and seeing what those people were looking for out of that job title. I think that's really helpful in just kind of deciphering what the differences are. So anyway, I hope this was helpful for some of you writers and editors and aspiring editors. Leave a comment down below and let me know which type is your favorite or which level of editing you think would be your favorite. And I will see you guys soon. Bye.